if you're new to the cushion or not too familiar with it, that it can be a long time. So I don't want to turn this into an endurance contest for you. I want you to come away from here with a positive understanding of what the practice is and the spirit of Chan, and the potential that you can obtain an information from, and a practice that will help you in the future, and not only help you, but give you the faith to bring others to the practice as well. I've tried to keep it a little bit more basic so that I don't lose you. It's very easy to fall into very complex topics right away, but I think at this point it would only confuse some of you, but others, you would probably like it. And, perhaps in the next times, we can have a little more detailed practice. But again, I don't want you to suffer so much and leave with a negative memory of this. So I will open it up for questions. If you have any questions, then you can ask your questions. So some of you did have questions. Please ask them now. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just wondering, you mentioned wisdom a lot today, and I'm curious to know your opinion. What is the difference between wisdom and intelligence?
Wisdom and what?
Intelligence.
Intelligence is something that is what I'd call like a book smart, and intelligence of things that pertain to this world. Wisdom, there's different kinds of wisdom. For instance, if you touch a pot that's hot, chances are the next time you're going to use a pot holder, you'll remember that. And that's wisdom. If you spend too much and you put yourself in a predicament, you might be more careful with your finances. These are worldly wisdom things that are there. Or if you have a problem, you don't let it get too far ahead of you, or you make it worse. The wisdom that is referred to is this knowing aspect of the mind. It's a wisdom that transcends the idea of samsara. The wisdom of worldly wisdom helps you in this particular world, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have a wisdom of how everything comes about. Even, let's say, in the Qigong can tell you how to even manipulate mind or to use it for benefit in samsara, but it cannot tell you, how to escape mind or to be liberated from mind, or more importantly, how to liberate others. This kind of wisdom comes from the understanding how all things come about by virtue of the pratika samappada, causes and conditions never fail. When we understand that part, then we're able to discern moment to moment what is appearing and accord with whatever appearances are there, so that we are able to guide our body, speech, and mind in wholesome ways to harmonize with the situation, whether it's something that's inanimate or it's something that pertains to people and relationships with people, that it knows how to harmonize with them in a way in which there's not a unwholesome outcome due to our inability to measure our responses to whatever is happening around us, and the responses may be one of holding back our emotions or our ego, or it may be one in which we use our vows to respond for us, so as to guide people, and we measure it in a way in accordance with what that person's ability is to understand. And so it is this wisdom that's what they call this transcendent wisdom, because this transcendent wisdom enables the mind to see clearly what is happening. And it's the mind, not the ego, that utilizes this wisdom. So the mind has its own perception and its own wisdom that is um, separate and apart from worldly wisdom. The worldly wisdom is kind of using the coin of the realm, to operate. Whatever here in the U.S. we use U.S. dollars, but if we go to other countries, we may not be able to use those U.S. dollars. The wisdom, transcendent wisdom, says, regardless of whatever dollars you use, they're still an illusion. And so it sees things in a different way. It has a different function. So even if we have a good wisdom, the wisdom that's there, it doesn't use this undifferentiated, non-discriminating wisdom that that sees things clearly, doesn't see a duality there. It sees things in a way in which it responds to situations in accordance with vows of wanting to help people and deliver people. And so when it uses these vows, its actions are much purer than the actions of someone that's clinging to an idea of an ego. That's the difference. So it's a good question. Okay, anybody else? Yes.
Question, but I'm not sure I can ask what it was all right.
Hold on, they're going to give you the.
So I was in a discussion with someone who was questioning the true vision, the right view, actually. And since the outside, I mean, how can I explain that? The things that we take as reality is very limited, right? With the things we kind of how can I ask that? The things we comprehend with our five senses is actually limiting us, because it's not, what surround us is not limited to the things that we kind of comprehend with our five senses. So does it mean that how can you explain, or how can you describe the things we don't see are not real, or feel, I mean, touch or hear or taste are not real, or that they are real, or is there such a thing called real? How can we kind of resolve this this dilemma? And how can we combine it with the right view, the true vision concept?
The question goes directly to right view, and in terms of what we look at. The answer to the question is not one that provides a samsaric solution to it, but directs one to contemplate mind. And because we look at it and say, apart from the Theravadan viewpoint of that everything is real, because it appears, and so it must be real, and where Mahayana says it's empty because it's devoid of a permanent nature to it. And then we get to the Madhyamaka school, and Nagarjuna saying that there's two truths. One is apparent reality, and one is absolute reality. This this question goes to looking at this world by the viewpoint of a bodhisattva. And a bodhisattva sees the world as being straddled with one foot in this samsaric world and one foot in the absolute. So it doesn't confirm nor negate the existence or non-existence of this world. In this way, everything appears as a non-dual aspect of mind. Even if we have projections that are projected in mind that are temporary, which would be apparent reality, they nevertheless are appearing in mind. So they cannot be said to be apart from mind. Otherwise, there would be a second reality, which is one apart from the absolute. But they are appearing in mind, so we cannot negate them. But since they're not permanent, we cannot say they're the absolute. But we don't cut them off or sever them from reality and say these are unreal, because by saying it's unreal, then it's saying that there's something that's a duality, which is that which is unreal and that which is real. But we cannot also say that these appearances are not unreal, because they lack the permanency of the absolute. So we begin to contemplate that center, or what's called the middle way. Madhyamika says middle way. And it's the middle way between that which appears to be real, eternal, and that appears to be unreal, which is nihilistic. And so the mind is neither of those, but it can incorporate those two terms as appearances, not as mind itself. So mind is beyond appearances, although it is where appearances are created. So we cannot say that that which is created by mind is not real. But so we just keep flipping this back and forth, back and forth. So we begin to come to the middle. No, it's kind of like something like a scale. If you lift it up, it could be a negative number. If you push it down, it's a positive. But it just goes like this till finally it just finds this middle ground. And in the middle ground, it is non-conceptual. And that's the hard part to do this, is that we have to learn the language of the Buddha. And the Buddha language is different. So it is what the advanced sutras are teaching us. Sometimes I talk about it, like there was the movie. Again, these are so old movies. I don't know if you guys even remember them. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So she goes, huh? Close Encounters. It was a movie about this aliens that decided to start communicating with humans, knowing that the humans were limited, but they knew that they had to be able to find a way to communicate. So they communicated with tones. So there would be a tone like boo, 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 boo. And then the Americans, they would copy it, boom, 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 boom. And then they'd say boo, 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 boom again, until finally it was boo, 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 like this. And they were teaching and downloading this language to the humans. And until it finally was producing these rapid communications. But it was communicating via tones. Here, the Buddha language has a tone. Do you know what the tone is? Oh. That's the universal tone. It is a communication. It's the Buddha language. So we begin to learn in this way, this Buddha language. We need to learn these basics. This is what the advanced sutras are giving us, is this Buddha language to be able to bridge through and and um, and not be stuck on what appears to be a contradiction, whether real or false. It's neither real nor false. There is nothing that we can see in this way. But when everything is just mind, it's the heart. That's why they have the Heart Sutra. It's the Heart Sutra that says the Buddhas appear in the world out of compassion for these illusory sentient beings. So when we have the four great vows are, I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings of self-nature, because those sentient beings belong to mine. I vow to cut off endless vexations of self-nature. It is said that the Buddhas use the vexations of sentient beings to practice. So you here as Buddhas, you use your sentient beings your vexations to practice. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma of self-nature. It is the Buddha language that one learns to be able to transcend and use this transcendent wisdom to break through. And so it is this way. Everything is self-nature. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood of self-nature. So it is this Buddhahood that we already have. We don't have any possessions, because in mind there is no duality. Possessions is a duality. This is mine. There's no possessions. It's all the Buddhas, because the Buddha created it. If you created a Mani pearl, it's created by mine. If you created a diamond, it's created by mine. If you created a piece of dung, it's created by mine. There's no discrimination. So it sees things in this way. So it transcends our idea in the sentient being of real and not real, because then we were stuck on a duality. So when we don't get stuck on the duality, everything is seen just as it is in this thusness. We can't even call it mind, because mind belongs to samsara. The concept of mind belongs to samsara. That's why we can't make the breakthrough, because we're constantly trying to find mind. Actually, I said to find mind or define mind is the same thing. By trying to define it, we're trying to find it, but we can't find it that way. It's already here, but we don't understand that. So it's a matter of transcending this worldly wisdom into this wisdom of the Buddha mind, and that it is just the intrinsic nature of the mind. So there is this, we understand appearances of phenomena, and we distinguish or discern these appearances of phenomena from their intrinsic nature. Means that they belong to mind, but they cannot be said to be the absolute mind, but they're not separate from the absolute mind. In the absolute mind, these things appear, but we understand. That's why Nagarjuna uses the two truths, which is, one is the apparent reality, or the relative reality, which is dependent on other appearances to be appearing. And the other one is the absolute, which is that which initially produced all of this via the 12 nidanas. And so it's taking responsibility for it, you know, and asking all these children to come home. Okay. So that gives you like an all-day sucker to work on, you know, and to try to work on. But that's the thing. It is neither real, neither false. And don't expect to get it completely right off the bat. It's years of practice, but nevertheless, you benefit from my study of it and explanations to be able to lead you to the platform that one has a faith to jump off of to be able to transcend the world. But there's not really a transcending because you're jumping from one pool to another pool. You're like a porpoise. You did it on purpose. You just go right back into the water. And so everything may disappear for a moment, but nevertheless, you go back to it. Yes.
The discussion actually evolved from when we started talking about like what's right and what's wrong can be different for everybody. Now we're in the human realm, but there are certain things that we cannot argue, like gravity.
Like what?
The gravity.
Gravity.
They're like scientific, scientifically proven rules that is dominating this this Earth universe. So the question actually evolved from there, and then we started thinking, but the gravity does not mean anything in the universe. So is that making it real or not real? So maybe these are not right questions, but we wonder sometimes, and we just feel like we're in a dead end. We don't have the answers. Maybe they don't have the answers. I don't know.
And you're asking the questions that even there's a lot of quantum physicists, for instance, and I have a student that's always sending me material on these quantum physicists that pontificate as to what they think is reality. And but they're coming from simply samsara, so it's impossible for them to be able to see it in the right way. And so the principles of the physics of this world, even within the world, there are things that can't be explained by the physicists, and appearances that are here we then see much different. And the idea of bending reality and being able to know something that is happening elsewhere, how can science explain that? No, those kinds of things it's difficult. So they're using the appearance reality and the rules of this reality, which are only the domain of this reality. They're not true reality. They're not absolute reality. But that's where they bang into the iron wall, because they can't go further. They can't escape by trying to define by the laws of science. Now, scientists will take a big issue with that, but that's why they can't go further. The people like Einstein and stuff that will be able to begin to see things that other scientists could not do, they would probably think if he was a Buddhist, he was making it up until he could prove it. But it is in this way that we have to be able to transcend that, to see and have faith in mind, because science itself is different. Master Shin Yang said it this way. Science can tell you how you were born to your parents. Okay, that's not quite a secret, right? How did you get into this world? But they can't tell you why you were born to your parents. And that's important. And this is the way he defined it in terms of showing the limitation of science in this way. And as you begin to contemplate this. This is where you will find the answer. As you begin to contemplate it, you will see. Then you run into the Buddha language, and the Buddha language can explain all of that, where you see things that are incomprehensible, inconceivable. But one of the things that really stunned me was when Sariputra was asking the Manjusri, and he was saying, Manjusri, how do you practice the inconceivable? So pay attention here. This is really good. How do you practice the inconceivable? And Manjusri said, I am the inconceivable. That's where you're headed to. I am the inconceivable. This very mind that you have right now is the inconceivable mind. You just have to step up and redeem your ticket. Okay. Any other questions? The husband and wife duo here. They're keeping you here.
So you mentioned a little bit about harmony as well.
About what?
Harmony. Everything
Harmony,
being
yes.
in harmony. And Buddha nature, Buddha mind. Okay. So with the advent of something artificial that we all know called artificial intelligence, right? In my opinion, I think the world is extreme left brain right now. I really believe this. Most of the population's left brain. And you mentioned midway, which was very interesting. So, and you mentioned absolute reality, being able to just step into it a little bit, see it from the left brain to the right brain, and then come back to the middle or go back to the left, which is samsara, in my opinion. So how do you see like spirituality, you know, I guess, how do you see this thing evolving in terms of like Buddha nature, Buddha mind? And will there be a merger of the two, perhaps?
There's neither a left nor the right. It is just simply appearances.
Okay.
The thing is that the artificial intelligence cannot replicate Buddha mind. It can replicate samsara, but it's limited to that. It does not have the ability of prescience or omniscience to do. It is incapable of that because it is simply replication and, let's say, even an enhancement of the thought processing of a of a sentient being. But it can only elevate a sentient being or enhance the abilities to do things, but it cannot replicate that which created it. If you think about that and say, that which created it was the Buddha mind, it cannot become its own creator. And so it will never elevate to that level. And for us to reconcile all that, that only happens with the illumination of the mind. When the illumination of the mind happens, a lot of things that appear to be contradictions are resolved. Like when the mind's illuminated, the questions that you have will instantly be resolved, and you go, I can't believe it was that simple. And it's just this mind. So that's the difference. We whether we're talking about artificial intelligence, because your intelligence is artificial. It is only limited to the knowledge of this universe. Aside from this universe, You don't have the ability to know what's outside this universe. We can look through the Hubble telescope and look back 5 billion years. How old is reality? Do you think reality began in this universe? How many universes there are? It's inconceivable from this side. It cannot begin to measure time, measure space in this way. So again, this is where we use the Buddha language to be able to serve as a platform for us to be able to have this realization and this self-absorption. When the mind absorbs the self, it's just mind. Nothing is lost. It doesn't increase or decrease. How could it? There's no duality there. Any increase or decrease presupposes there's a duality of some number, a finite number, and another finite number. But that's why they always talk about infinite. So, because it cannot be measured, cannot be conceived of. So when we try to do that, even if you try to measure the universe, it's only the universe. Mind is beyond that. It's beyond that. What we see as reality. Most of us can't even see ghosts or hell dwellers or heaven dwellers. So we're very limited using our senses to be able to see things. But then we begin to extrapolate what we think is reality, what we think is there. But it requires a transcendence to be able to see that. And I use the term very hesitantly, this transcendence, because it is not like you become a more enlightened person. There's no enlightenment in that way. Enlightenment is just simply returning to mind, returning the apparent reality back to mind where it was issued from. Like a bubble, does if we pop a bubble, does the remnants of the bubble form a different reality? Or does it just simply return to the wave? So it's a different way of looking. These are good questions. I mean, they require introspection or self-introspection, but they're a good platform to jump off of. Okay. Any other questions? No, you guys know all this stuff back there. Yes, you have a question. Go ahead. You were the one that had the question initially.
Really? Okay.
I was waiting for your question.
Thank you. So my question is, I heard a friend said, "Oh, I met a person, and he told me he just meditated for like a few years. He didn't actually read or study. He just meditated, and he realized, what's true. It's kind of like he feel like he probably didn't use the word. He feel like he figured out all the thing out. So that's my friend told me. So she think we don't need to study, read those things. Just meditate. So I want to see like your opinion about this kind of idea.
It's I know of someone that espouses that position as well, that became a Dharma Arab, but one of my Dharma brothers. I think that this is approaching what is known in the Mahayana as a Pratika Buddha. A Pratika Buddha, and I'm not saying that he's enlightened, but he's heading towards that way in terms of the way of just meditating, because he knows nothing about the Dharma. If you talk to him about the Dharma, he has no clue. but he just sits and meditates and says, I don't need to do anything. I just follow Shakyamuni Buddha. And Shakyamuni Buddha didn't have anybody to teach him, you know. So, but Shakyamuni Buddha is the Dharma. That's what he's missing, is that from his lifetime of practicing. So when somebody sits and meditates, it's self-realization, self-confirmation of realization. But if you scratch the surface, you will find that their self-realization is a very thin veneer that's masking ego. And because they may have been able to stop the mind, but they truly haven't transcended that, and can't utilize it in the Mahayana to demonstrate compassion. So most people that I've met that are that way are not really teachers as much as they just say, oh, I got there, I didn't have to learn anything. But the sutras are very condemning about that kind of a practice, and that kind of a practice that these people can fall into a hell by that kind of a practice and espousing that kind of a practice, because they lead people in a false way. And yes, one can stop the mind. Yes, they can do that, but this is not a profound Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. The Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi requires one to truly understand and penetrate the sutras and have this unexcelled wisdom. We don't hold that the wisdom is in simply the teaching of the Dharma. We understand that the Dharma itself is an appearance, but we understand that it's necessary to develop this unexcelled wisdom. So this person that holds this kind of a view, should be mindful about the fact that if they're just simply going, oh, I can do this, there's so many people that have ways, in Taiwan several years ago, maybe 25 years ago, there was some practitioners that were there, and they were espousing that they were so far beyond and enlightened that they could do anything they wanted, including, like free sex and drinking and whatever, because it didn't taint them, because this world was an illusion. But what do you think of that? That's kind of scary, right? So who knows where they're at now? I don't know if they're still alive, but their penalty will be great if they lead people in the wrong way. It's very, very serious when you're a Dharma teacher or you're presenting things. You have to be very careful to avoid what they call wild fox Chan. When you're saying things that aren't supported, whatever I present, I always am supported by the sutras or the teachings of the ancient masters. I don't make things up. It's very important because people have to have faith in that. That's why I'm constantly referring to sutras, so that people understand it's not something that I make up. Oh, Gilbert's really wild. He's coming up with all these things that, no, nobody has challenged me. They may challenge me for whatever other reasons, but the only criticism I've ever heard is I teach too deep. Seriously. So the thing is that it's important. People that do that, it's very dangerous for them, because they say that because they haven't read the sutras. They don't understand the consequences of presenting things in this way. It's like somebody who is ignorant, so ignorant they don't know how ignorant they are. Okay. So other than that, I don't have much of an opinion. But I say that because people have to be clear about that in their practice and where people are getting these kinds of things, these self-realizations from. And there's too many that aren't even Buddhists, but just self-realizers that pass along a bunch of baloney, that trap people, and the consequences are great. The karma is very, very bad. There was a group of people way back when, one of them wrote the book called The Secret. I don't know if you remember that or not. You remember? You guys really? No. Even one of my students fell under their spell. The shortcut. This was the phony shortcut, because you could get everything you wanted. You just have to put your mind on it. I said, it doesn't work that way, because it still has to be in harmony with causes and conditions. If you want to fly and you put your mind, I want to fly, you might as well be waiting to get hit by a car. Look, I'm flying, because you're not going to fly just simply by saying that. Causes and conditions have to be present to do that. My Qigong master, his master took him to the forest and he actually saw somebody flying. I've never seen anybody fly, so I cannot prove that or say I saw it with my eyes. My master saw the person flying like in the Kung Fu movies, on the trees, like that. But the thing is that causes and conditions, that he put in all the work to do that. Who knows how many years he cultivated to be able to practice in this way. I've seen the people on the videos where they're levitating off the cushion. You can't see any cushion. There's a gap between it. So they actually could do things like that, but they put in the practice to do it. It doesn't mean that they're enlightened. It just means that they've cultivated those kinds of practices. So it's a little bit different, but we don't hold on to those as saying that this is enlightenment because somebody can defy the laws of physics in that way. But as you begin to see this world, you'll see there's little cracks into the idea of reality as we see it, that people can do things that appear to be impossible, but they're real, but they put the time in to do them. It's not like a Harry Potter that I pick up a stick and I can do all this stuff. I don't need the stick. I'm jesting, so don't quote me on that. But in any case, that's it. So your question's a good question, because your friend really needs to practice seriously. Okay. Anything else? No?
I may have a simple question. When I'm meditating,
Thank you. And maybe this is the phase that I'm going through. I don't know, but I'm having difficulty keeping the focus, the front of my face, and I find myself lost, not in thoughts necessarily, but in emptiness. But then, I bring myself back. And then, mind starts picking up some aches and pain in the body and the sitting. And then, it's a constant struggle. So is there any practical solutions to kind of overcome these things? Because I really want to move forward with my method and my meditations and eventually become more advanced in it.
You continue to study the Dharma to serve as the platform to practice from. We take faith in the Dharma, faith in yourself, that if you study and you practice seriously, it will come to you. This is the way it is. It's natural in this way. Later, it will come, in its own time. You have to have faith that it will work in that way, and it will. But you just have to be patient. And little by little, it gets better. And then sometime there might be a sudden breakthrough, but we don't sit and wait for a sudden breakthrough. We don't need it. Most of my students that are advanced students, some of them have had breakthroughs, some of them have small, some have had great ones. But when I see the people demonstrating the wisdom and compassion, this is a great breakthrough. They would not even know that they made a breakthrough. But you see it in their demonstration. So it's okay. Don't worry about that. It will come in its own time. And you just have to have the faith, and it will develop. So don't worry. A lot of people attach to that and think that they have to go through some, extra sensory experience or a lightning bolt that hits them, and hits the top of their head and shoots out their bottom or whatever. No, you don't have to do that. Don't worry about that. You're right where you should be, asking the questions that you should. Your questions and your husband's questions are very sincere. This is what you do. You just keep practicing in this way. Don't worry. How are you going to measure it? What kind of a measuring stick are you going to measure this with? It's not in that way. You just keep practicing, and causes and conditions will never fail. Okay. So it's good. These are honest questions. So, yes.
I think since I've been meditating, I've always wondered in the back of my mind, am I putting enough time in? For example, during the week, I do breath exercises in the morning and then I meditate. There's a few other things I do, but I'm meditating for 15 minutes. What's your opinion about the length of time that you meditate, and what do you consider to be a good practice, for meditation?
On Mondays, you should meditate for 5 minutes. On Tuesdays, 5 hours. On Wednesdays, 3 hours. On Sundays, you can take a rest. Oh, no, that's Christians. It isn't in this way. It is the quality over quantity of time. Some people make the mistake, and they what Master Shen Yang would always say is, did you come to the retreat to practice your legs or the Dharma? And so it's something that he would always say that, but it's important because when we see that it isn't in this way, it is a sincerity of the practice. So it's not like putting in time and do it. The standard, you could say, they would say the length of an incense stick burning. So you go, I've got to find some short incense sticks, but an incense stick can last, let's say, roughly 40 minutes. Ergo, that's what all of a sudden becomes a standard. But it isn't in this way. It is in the quality of that. But not only just simply, there's no magic time to sit to meditate. It is what you do during the whole day. Every moment is a practice. And you practice in a way that is sincere. Every moment presents an opportunity to choose the Buddha or choose ignorance. And so when you practice, you practice in a way that doesn't cause harm to you or to others, more importantly, and that advances a wholesome environment around you. If you practice in this way, your heart will be more interested in sitting, or more importantly, in studying and your interactions with other people. After a while, you will find more and more ways to to explore the Dharma. I have Dharma books all over my house. I have statues all over my house. I have reminders to practice everywhere. And no, I'm putting on a sutra that's being read, while I'm cleaning up. And there's so many ways that they say, like 84,000 ways to practice the Dharma. So we make use of them. Maybe 2 or 3, 5,000, opportunities I think you could get to in a day. But it's just this way. Every moment, every thought presents an opportunity to practice. And so you see the practice in this way, not simply just sitting to meditate. You're not cooking or baking a cake. If you want something very quick, you can bake biscuits instead of a cake. But when it comes out, it's just biscuits. It's not a cake. Or you can get yourself like a Twinkie from the 7-Eleven. So we see it in this way, the sincerity of the practice, okay? But always engage yourself in practice. Don't forget this. So the idea to have a memory is important, because the memory is reminds you to practice. Little by little, as you practice, you'll have more interest in practicing. And because it begins to pay off, it really changes the way you view the world and the way people view you. And you see that the karma begins to change. Okay. It's good questions. I kind of kid you a little bit, but I think I can poke you a little bit. With not, other people will take offense right away. When I was very young in my teaching, somebody asked me the question, I don't understand this. And I just gave them a standard Chan answer is, you'll never understand. And the person went, and he quit. So I only say that to people when they're like one of my senior students, otherwise people might take an offense, to what I'm saying, that the reality of it, that the ego can never understand it. But anyway, you're good natured, so that's good. Okay, anything else? All right, go ahead.
So I have a question about my parents. They're good people, but sometimes I saw like they worry, and they fight with each other. Like verbally. The old couples, right? And so they got angry, upset. And so the other things make them like worry. So I think the Dharma will really help them. So I like to practice and listen to the Dharma. So I try to introduce to my parents, like sometime like talk to them, see if you want to, practice, or seems like most of the time they don't have interest. They just think, why should I practice? My dad doing Tai Chi, he think Tai Chi is good enough for him. And my mom said, she has her own way, So my question is, like, in that situation, should we just say, okay, just leave them alone? It's just like my practice I do myself, or I still, should it be like try to find chance, like, persuade them to practice? Because from the Buddhist perspective, if they practice Buddhism, it will definitely help them, not now and in the future. But sometimes I just feel, why people are so different. Like, I feel like this is so good every time when I listen to, the teaching, I'm so happy. But, but some people seems they're just like, that's your thing, just leave me alone attitude. So what's your suggestion? You know?
My family is all Catholics. So my chances of converting them to Buddhism is not that much. My mother, I always shared the Dharma with her. My father came at a time or passed away before I really got into Buddhism. But my mother, I would talk to her and she'd say, "That's wonderful." I would tell her something to the Diamond Sutra. And she was, "Wow, that's very amazing." But she was still a Catholic. We teach people in their ability to understand. We don't take people away from their faith, but we give them something to think about, to contemplate, to look into. And so it is your skillful means to be able to introduce them to the Dharma. And you introduce them in a way so that upon later on, as they're getting closer to passing away, that they will be familiar with what you're saying to them and to helping them. Right now, one of my students, her mom is passing away, and yeah, come on in. When that happened, she is little by little introducing her to the Dharma and protecting her, and just to teach her in her ability to understand and take away the fear of the separation of the mind and the body. And so we find this way from our compassion to be able to talk to them, to find the way to pose questions to them. We don't, tell them, like Christians knocking on the door and saying, "Have you heard the word?" Or the Buddha loves you. We don't do things like that. We in due time show via our examples. And someone like your dad that's practicing the Tai Chi, no, he still has a use of the mind. So and the concentration, so you can begin to post things to him and talk to him as long as you're not like pressing yourself on him. I have this one niece-in-law that she's like, everybody, if they see her, they just turn the other way, because otherwise she'll sit there and talk to you about Jesus, nonstop. And even he'll be nice to you and talk to you, and all of a sudden it turns into Jesus, and you just go, "Oh, Jesus, not again." And this is not the way to do that. And funny thing about it, I think I know more about the Jesus than she does. And but the thing is that we find the way with our heart to present the Dharma to people, and you are waiting for those opportunities to be able to speak to people and to give them something to do, so that when they begin to pass, that you're there, as a vanguard, trying to help them to go through, and they'll be more likely to do that. I advised actually one monastic like that had difficulty breaking through with her mother, and I showed her how to do it. And then when the mother was passing, they were both reciting or both chanting together, which was wonderful. And so don't give up. Just find the way to present, let's say, put the seeds in first, okay? And then it will work in accordance with causes and conditions. What you want to do is be able to prepare them for their passing, so that they have something to be able to hold on to, and then and it will work. Okay. Okay, you're welcome. I think that's it. We thinned out the crowd, let's say. But in any case, it's fine. So I thank you all for coming. All right. Bye-bye.